Welcome to the City Council meeting. Thanks for being with us tonight. As always, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a scout troop here to lead it for us tonight. It's Troop 190 from the Yale-Crest area, led by Darren Bell. Would you guys mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance today? Let's all rise. Okay, fellas, you don't get off that easy. All of you need to come up here to the microphone and introduce yourselves to us. We want to know your name, and we want to know where you go to school. And how come only the leaders are wearing uniforms? And yeah, pull that mic right down.
My name's Noah Crockett, and I go to Clayton Middle School.
And what do you like about Scouts?
I just like spending time with my friends and the Scout leaders and doing fun things with them.
Good answer.
My name is Andrew Clausen, and I go to Uinta Elementary School.
What do you like about Scouts?
You just learn a lot that is very helpful, like in your daily life, and yeah.
All right.
My name's Soren Bell, and I go to East High School.
Same question.
Okay, well, like Noah said, I like being with my friends, and then I also think scouting teaches you a lot of important life skills.
All right, leaders, come on up. You wore a uniform, or not, that doesn't get you out of it. Which one is Darren?
I'm Darren Bell. I'm actually assistant scout leader, and I don't go to school, but I work at an architectural firm called Babcock Design Group over on Exchange Place.
What do you like about Scouts?
I have to say my motivation is to just get outdoors because I love the outdoors. So
Great,
that's my favorite.
thank you.
Hi. Yeah, I'm the Scout Master, Chris Checketts, also not in school. I work at Fidelity Investments, just downtown. What I like about scouting is just the refresher on everything that I learned as a scout, and like Darren said, just being in the outdoors.
Well, thank you both for being leaders and volunteering, and thank you, young men. You're, of course, welcome to stay for the whole council meeting if you'd like to. They're always very exciting, and tonight will surely be such. Or thank you if you need to go, and we appreciate you leading in our Pledge of Allegiance tonight. We usually do a welcome and review of the standards of conduct. This doesn't look like too rowdy a crowd tonight, but I'll just review them for consistency's sake. Please don't hold up very big signs to block people's views. If you have something you want to give to the council, a handout, just raise your hand at the point that you're going to come up and make comment, and one of our staff members can get it from you and distribute it to us. Don't come up to the desk, please. Everybody, when we get to the public comment, you get 2 minutes. You can't give your time to someone else. And I think the last thing that comes to mind is that a lot of this furniture and certainly the artwork in here is historic, so please be respectful of that. But I trust you'll all be great guests here, and we appreciate you being with us tonight. So we're going to start with Section B now, which is our public hearings. We have an ordinance consideration for budget amendment number 1 for fiscal year 2018-19. I don't have any comment cards on that particular item. Is there anyone who's here to speak to the budget amendment number 1? Raise your hand. Okay, council members, I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer this item for action as part of budget amendment number 1 of fiscal year 2019.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Luke, second by Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes, and we're on to item 2, which is a resolution for a revised public benefits analysis for donation to the Homeless Resource Center. Again, I don't have any cards. Is there anyone here here to speak to that particular item? And
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have some new information on that one. We need to work with the Attorney's Office to revise that analysis, just tweak it a little bit. And so we'll be relisting it on the October 16th agenda. So I think at this time, the council doesn't need to take action. If there's anyone here to speak to it, you can certainly take their comment, but we'll
Okay.
re-advertise it for the 16th.
Then I'll look for a motion to keep this one open.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Kitchen, a second by Councilmember Johnston. Any discussion? Everybody in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that one passes. Item 3 is a resolution for a proposed amendment to the interlocal agreement with Salt Lake County on the 10th East Senior Center. And Cindy Cromer is here to speak to that. She's the only card I have, so if anyone wants to speak on this one, raise your hand and we'll get you a comment card. Thank you, Ms. Cromer.
I think this is the third time I've been the only speaker. My name is Cindy Cromer, and I live very close to the property in question on 10th East. I'm speaking to you tonight to ask you to undo an agreement which I believe never should have occurred. For the past 3 years, I have relentlessly argued that the parcel at 237 South 10th East should not be split into 2 portions. Now the city and the county have come to the same conclusion for different reasons than my own. I don't agree with the reasons, but I'm relieved that we're all agreed about the immediate solution, which is to undo the deal. The property at 237 South 10th East was a private tennis club many years ago, very exclusive according to my neighbor born in 1915. The city acquired the property in 1927, and it continued to be a mecca for tennis. Wallace Stegner lived in the neighborhood and played tennis there. In 1963, the property became the home to the first building dedicated to the needs of senior citizens in the state. The building is designed by Birch Beal, who also worked on this building, by the way. More recently, the Salt Lake City Council provided CDBG funding to bring the building into ADA compliance somewhat and zero-scape the front yard. This open space has a rich history and is in a part of the city where we simply are not going to be able to acquire additional open space ever. The city has owned the land since 1927 continuously. For the past 3 years, I've been on this mission about the inappropriateness of splitting the property between the city and the county. I want to thank city employees who have very patiently provided updates regarding the transfer of the property in response to my relentless and numerous phone calls. I also want to thank the city attorneys. I don't know the appropriate legal terms, but if you go into an agreement through a public process, then you need to extricate yourself from the agreement in front of the public, which is what is happening right now. The city attorneys, thank goodness, had the same view on this aspect of the agreement that I do as an activist. Please undo this deal as it affects 237 South 10th East, known as the 10th East Senior Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cromer, as always, for your comments. That is the only card I have. Anyone else for the 10th East Senior Center? Then I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
Oh, wait.
Which,
I don't have my motion sheet. Let me see.
please.
I move that the council close the public hearing and refer the item to a future date for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Luke, a second by Councilmember Kitchen. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that one passes. We're on to item 4, which is an ordinance for accessory dwelling unit amendments. If you have one, come on up. You can go first and we'll grab your comment card after. Please just say your name into the mic. And Cindy Lou will grab your card afterward. You can just start on and we'll grab it in a minute. Thank you.
My name's Sheila O'Driscoll.
Thank you.
I live in City Council District 6, represented by Charlie Luke. My biggest concern is that, especially in District 6, there are a lot of people who simply do not understand what's about to happen here. I understand that apparently 6 out of the 7 representatives on the City Council are really for this as soon as possible, and I would really like to recommend that you take more time. I think not only my district, but everybody else in the city deserves better than what is apparently proposed right now. There's a lot of questions. I intend and have contacted a number of people and asked them simply, I said, what do you know about this? And they don't know anything. And I've been out of town for pretty much the last 4 months, so I haven't kept up on what's going on either. But I really, and it's not that I'm opposed to this, I just think what's apparently on the board at this point is not good enough for anybody. And I would really appreciate it if you would take some time, get more public input, especially from my residential neighborhood and those who simply are not aware of the potential impact to our residential neighborhood. I've lived on the same corner in Salt Lake for 32 years. I raised all of my kids in this neighborhood. I love my residential neighborhood. And instead of being a discriminatory kind of thing, I think it's part of the diversity of living opportunities in Salt Lake. And I would just appreciate it if you would take a step back, think about the collateral impact that may not be intended but could be really negative to well-established single-family home neighborhoods. And before you think I just love single-family homes, I want you to know I have lived in a duplex for 32 years on the same corner. I don't have a problem with that. I just want more time. And I'm going to bring as many people as I can here on the 16th.
Thank you. We will have another public hearing that night. Thank you. I have John Armstrong next, followed by Robert Goodman.
Good evening, Council. I'd like to thank you and for Mr. Tarbett for being patient during the process of amending ADU ordinance. I have followed this process over the course of multiple months into years, so I thank you for not giving up on it. I also want to thank you for creating a balanced, thoughtful, and conciliatory amendment. I know that there's nothing on this amendment that didn't come without debate and without real thought. During a housing crisis, the solutions you consider are in the thousands of units, right? You often vote on apartment complexes in the thousands. And although it's unclear the impact of this amendment, it's safe to say it will never reach the same capacity as a high-rise apartment building. So then you might ask yourself, why vote yes? What impact could this possibly have? I was raised by a single immigrant mother who raised 5 children in a modest single-family home in 84104. At 73 years old, she finds herself in a precarious predicament. She can no longer afford to live in her residence of 45 years, but she can't afford to move out either and still continue to live in Salt Lake County. If she sells or rents her house to make ends meet, she won't be able to live anywhere sustainably. It's for this sweet woman and many others who would otherwise fall between the housing policy cracks, who are hard to accommodate when you are trying to plan for the thousands. It is for these people that you vote yes. I would implore you to vote yes. It will have a very meaningful impact, even if it is not a large impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Robert Goodman is up next, followed by Christopher Kwan. And Christopher's is the last card I have.
Thank you to the council. My name is Robert Goodman. I'm a homeowner in District 5. I would just like to speak in support of this ordinance. I have listened to you guys' RDA meetings, and I know you've thought about this extensively. And I would also like to support the stipulation that the property owner live at the side of the property. And also, for what's worth, I support less parking stall regulations, so there's more opportunity to build these ADUs and more living opportunities. Thank you to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Christopher Kwan up next.
Hi, my name's Christopher Kwan. I'm a property owner in District 5. I generally approve of the amendment to change the accessory dwelling units to be more inclusive of a larger geographic area. I think the restriction to a half mile of fixed rail is too narrow. I think the fixed rail corridors are already doing their job by housing the high density developments that we see all over town. And I think that by more generally spreading accessory dwelling units throughout the city, I think we can spread out the densification of the city, and I think that's generally a good thing. Also, I like the possibility in District 5, we've got a lot of alleys. I like the thought that we can have more eyes on the alleys to help patrol our public environment. And that's about it. I think it's a good thing to generalize accessory dwelling units.
Thank you, Mr. Kwan. Is anyone else here to speak to the ADU issue tonight? Please come up and we'll have you fill out a card afterward. Sometimes the spirit just moves you.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I filled out the card. I'll turn it in after I'm done.
Okay.
My name's Clayton Morgan. I live on 1849 East, 1300 South, and I wanted to voice my support for the resolution. In my case, you know, after reading through this and contemplating what you've gone through to decide what the restrictions would be, the parking requirements, I think it's a pretty well thought through ordinance. And I would like this to pass because in my case, I've got both my wife's mother and my mother that are getting older and may need to live closer to us than they currently do, preferably, well, not necessarily on the same property, but that may end up happening. So this would allow us to do that. So I wanted to voice my support for it. I think it's overdue. So thank you.
Thank you. And if you filled out a different colored card, we'll still collect it from you. Cindy Lou will come grab that. Thank you. One more. Come on up, please. And state your name into the microphone, please.
Hi, my name is Bob Seiler. I live over near Liberty Park, Cleveland Avenue between 4th and 5th East for about 14 years. I'm pretty aware of all the development and building that's been going on in the county, particularly over the past maybe 7-8 years. I think for the people who are currently homeowners in the county, should have an opportunity to develop their own homes if for all the people involved in neighborhoods, in regard to all the issues that have to be concerned in terms of, I guess, what, building permits and spaces and regulations, and if people are considerate of each other's space, you know, with parking, with building, with views, with heights, dimensions, and permits, I think people adding on to their own homes would be a lot more aesthetic and important to the people living there and to the neighborhood rather than putting up these big apartment buildings that they are in Sugar House, almost on any corner, downtown on 4th South. They're quite, I think, unappealing and quite unaesthetic, but I think they're just trying to serve a purpose of maybe providing housing for people, but also I think the opportunity for a business to be renting or selling all these vacancies that they're going to have. I think it would be a nice compliment for the people who do own, again, respectively in all regards, to be able to
Time.
develop their homes.
Great, thank you. And I see you have another comment card. You can hand both of those to Cindy Lou, and we'll call you up for your next one as well. One more, any more? Everyone, if anyone wants to speak on ADUs, you're all welcome to. Come on up, state your name. We'll have you fill out a comment card afterward, please.
Good evening. My name's Sean Wetterberg. Apologies, as a rookie, I didn't know about the cards. I will
That's
get
okay.
one for you. Charlie, I'm in your district, north of Sugar House Park, and I'm not very much prepared to speak to this, but I wanted to definitely log my support for it and tell you that I appreciate what you guys are doing. One of the things that I think is important is what was mentioned earlier about just the integrity of the neighborhoods, and it matters. But what I can tell you is that I've been living in my house in Sugar House for 4 years now, and I walk my dog a lot. And what I've noticed is that there are a considerable number of duplexes out of single-family homes, or not duplexes, but like mother-in-law apartments out of single-family homes in my neighborhood that you don't even notice. driving around. It's only when I'm walking my dog that I have finally realized how many are there. And so, as a homeowner that would like to do that, it's interesting. I live across the street from a duplex, and all up and down my street are mother-in-law apartments that have valid addresses. And right now, I think I am understanding that I'm not allowed to do that in my place. So I think this is important. And the last thing that I would say is that I have probably specific comments on the legislation. I don't know if I'm too late for that, but I have specific comments and questions. I assume that I can provide those in written format.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yes, and even if you have questions tonight, we have some staff people here. Nick Tarbett over there with a pencil in his mouth, he's an expert on this subject, and he could
Well, I mean, the
meet
first one that
meet
jumps
you in
out
the
is
hallway.
this owner occupancy thing. It makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, but what does that mean? If you move and you sell it, does someone have to tear out the other kitchen?
We can answer those in writing, or you can meet with Nick whenever you want to
Thank
step
you.
out in the hallway. Thank you. Anyone else? ADUs? Dave Iltis? Oh, you want to come on up? Okay, and then we'll have you after, Dave.
My name is Rebecca Tu. I bought a house by Liberty Park about a year ago. It has a really large backyard, and I was like, this is going to be perfect. I can add another unit. I came into the zoning department here, and I was shut down in every solution that I tried to provide to create more housing, because I know that there is a housing shortage. My friends are experiencing it. I personally have experienced it as well, just at least trying to find the house and buy it and be able to afford it. But they had shot me down in several different ways, and they said, well, just maybe wait for the accessory dwelling units to be approved. So I do have a larger backyard, which could accommodate a larger accessory dwelling unit, which could accommodate maybe 2 people instead of just 1 person. So I'd like you to think about maybe allowing a larger size of accessory dwelling unit depending on the size of the property, just to fit with the property. Also, another thing that I've been looking into is the construction costs. With the lumber being so expensive right now, an accessory dwelling unit is going to cost maybe $250,000 to construct. I'd like you to really consider some alternative housing options for tiny homes and even shipping container homes if they're aesthetically pleasing and fit within some sort of rule or guideline. I don't think we should just throw, dumps everywhere, but really consider those options and align ourselves with Portland and in Seattle, and actually being able to afford an accessory dwelling unit so we can provide more housing for other people. Because I've definitely looked at the costs and comparables of all of the different options, and that would be incredible if we could have that. And just the community aspect of accessory dwelling units, there's been a lot of crime, a lot of break-ins, and being able to have a unit in the back to look out for the property is going to be really beneficial. So,
Thank you, and please fill out a comment card. Dave Iltis, I think Soren, you'll be up next.
My name's Dave Eltis. I just wanted to speak in favor of the accessory dwellings unit ordinance. I moved to the Avenues in 2000, and the basement apartment I had there was what allowed me to move there. I couldn't have afforded to live there without that apartment. But it took me 6 years to legalize it with the really archaic and it was just really a nightmare to get through that process in the early 2000s to get that to be a legal duplex, which it is now. And I had to go back and reconstruct, was it an apartment from 1938 on, which is when the house was built, I had to get all my neighbors to sign off on that. I had to repave a parking spot that wasn't ideal because it heats up. It was dirt, now it's paver stones. It certainly looks nice, a lot nicer now, but I couldn't afford it at that point in time. So you'll hear a lot, I'm sure you've probably heard a lot about parking in the Avenues, and oh my God, if we have another duplex in the Avenues, the sky's gonna fall. Well, it's not. And there is parking in the Avenues. If somebody has to park a block away and walk back to their house, it's not the end of the world. And So I haven't had a chance to look at the details of the updated ADU ordinance, but in general, I'm very supportive of it. It's environmentally friendly. It adds to infill and, sort of reduces sprawl. And also for many homeowners like myself, it's what made it affordable for me to live in Salt Lake. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iltis. Soren Simonson? Soren's the last card, but it doesn't mean he has to be the last speaker. Welcome back, Soren.
Thank you. It's great to be with you this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share some brief comments. There's not a lot of things that bring me in front of the council, as you know, but affordable housing is one of those, and particularly addressing the root causes of homelessness. I'm a big champion and supporter of accessory dwelling units, as you know. I've spoken to you about it before. Worked on the previous legislation, which we have on the books now. We know from that previous work that we did that we haven't been overwhelmed as a city. And in fact, if anything, we've been underwhelmed with the number of accessory units that have been added to our housing stock. I urge you to move forward and adopt the accessory dwelling unit ordinance, to remove as many barriers as you can to make it ubiquitous throughout the city. I can speak from my own neighborhood, which has dozens and dozens of accessory units, many of which predated the 1995 zoning change. I love my neighbors that live in these units. They provide rich tapestry to our neighborhood. They're my kids' music teachers, they're students. They provide babysitting and a lot of other things that serve our community very well. They're our friends and neighbors. And I hope we have many more opportunities to see this kind of increase in housing that has minimal impact on neighborhoods and has virtually no detriment. And we have great experience, well over a century of accessory units throughout the city that are working very, very well. Some of them I know may not be legal because that's a challenging process to legalize them, and I hope that process can be addressed through this as well to make existing units become functional and legal as well. Good luck with your deliberations. I encourage you to adopt this and do it swiftly and do it really ubiquitously. Thank you.
Thank you, Soren. Todd Ridgway, did you want to speak to this item? Okay.
I just bought a place on First Avenue. It's about 12th East, and it had an apartment down the basement, about 800 square feet, from about 1950 to 95, and I guess one of the neighbors complained about the parking, and so they came out and shut it down. So anyway, I think it would be a great benefit for for me, definitely. I had a tenant move out of the upstairs, when I moved in, and she can't afford to live in the Avenue. She was getting really cheap rent there, and I felt bad for her. She has nowhere to go. But, I mean, what could I do? I can't let her live downstairs because it's not legal. It's got a kitchen and everything. It's not been used in 20 years. I think it'd be definitely helpful for the homeless situation. I think it's unfair to build all these great units for homeless people. Sure, they have their problems, but the same people that are struggling to pay their mortgage they have to subsidize all these 5,000 incredibly nice units in Sugar House, while we're not allowed to have renters help pay the tax for the homeless people. So anyway, I'm really grateful for all the people that have come out to support this, and I'm grateful for the council for your the direction that you're moving on this, and that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ridgway. Anyone else want to speak on ADUs tonight? Okay. Well, then I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close public hearing and note that a second public hearing on accessory dwelling units is scheduled for October 16th.
Second.
I have a motion by Council Member Wharton, a second by Council Member Luke. Any discussion?
Do we have a council meeting next week?
We do, but not a formal meeting, if
No
I'm not
formal
mistaken.
meeting, I see.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll keep the ADU conversation going one more time. Our last public hearing is an ordinance for a municipal boundary adjustment with the city of South Salt Lake. I don't have any comment cards. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak to this item? Then I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close public hearing and adopt an ordinance adjusting the municipal boundary between Salt Lake City and South Salt Lake.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Kitchen. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that one passes. We have no potential action items tonight, so that takes us to section D, our comments. Do we have any questions to the mayor from the city council? Thank you for being with us tonight, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Kitchen?
Yeah. Thank you for being here tonight. It's nice to have you with us. And I also wanted to thank you for your comments to the Granary District for the mural program on Saturday. That was a fun event. And I feel like the RDA staff did a really great job at organizing that. So I hope that you'll share that with everybody. I do have a question, and it's more of a technical question. I'm curious about the location of the current road home and why the administration opted not to exercise their option for purchase.
The road home.
The road home
building itself?
Exactly, over on 2nd South.
I'm not aware that we had some sort of option that was overriding the decision of the actual owners.
The right of first refusal, and now the state has the property. So I thought there might be a strategic opportunity for the city.
Yeah,
and so
well, we didn't have a plan for that space as a city, and the partnership with the state made sense. So as a board member, I supported that.
I think the reason why this is of interest to me, it's for a number of reasons. You know, we care a lot about this neighborhood, but this falls squarely within the Depot District RDA project area. And as the board chair of the redevelopment agency, I would have appreciated a conversation about that. And I know that the other board members probably would have loved to engage on that as well, because we do have strategic plans for that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. And this actually supported those plans. It would enable the state to move one of their projects out of the area where we want to do development and bring it into that space where the road home is. So it actually is to our benefit how it will play out in the end.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions for the mayor? Okay, then we'll move on to comments to the city council, and I have two cards here, one from Stephen Pace and the second from Bernie Hart. This is the part of the council meeting when anybody can come talk to us about anything you want the council to hear for 2 minutes. Stephen Pace, if you want to come up, please do. Take your 2 minutes, and Bernie will hear from you after.
Thank you. My name's Stephen Pace. I live at 181 B Street. On an adjoining property at 222 4th Ave, I'm pretty sure I've got the biggest piece of flat residential ground that has no use in the avenues in Salt Lake. It's got 2 buildings on it that the city declared to be city historic sites. I thought in my innocence that I might be able to rehabilitate them. The city said, no, no, no. For the past bunch of years, the best idea I could get from planning and zoning on what to do with that land is to build a community vegetable garden, which may make sense on some planet, but I don't think on this one. It seems to be more a way for the planning and zoning to tell you to basically pee up a rope. I've looked at this a bit harder and determined that there's sort of an ugly little secret about trying to get land. I wanted to buy some from the city. And that's that it's a lot easier to steal land than it is to buy it from Salt Lake City. And I've got all kinds of examples about that. You don't have to survey land. You don't have to have proof of purchase. You can apply to zoning without actually owning the ground and get a permit to build on it. And so I look closely at the land surrounding me, and you have to survey the ground in order to know exactly where the property lines are and where the buildings are to see how much of that's going on. On my block, there are 3 substantial buildings that are encroaching. One of them is built mostly on city ground. There's a house that's about 5 feet onto its neighbor's property. I've looked elsewhere in the avenues, and that is going on all over. That messes up mortgage financing, title insurance, and all kinds of other stuff. Now, this is not me that's saying this. In the packet that I've passed out, I did a grandma search on the property that I've got, and sure enough, the city property services says we own that land that has been built on. Planning and zoning, and there's a copy of the grandma from that, said, no, go ahead and build on it. Build it higher if you want. It'll be a credit to the neighborhood. And that stuff is included in here.
Mr. Pace, your time is up.
Excuse me?
Your time is up.
Oh, okay. Well, if I could just finish by saying that if anybody wants to talk more about this or see how to look up stuff for their own land to see whether or not there are encroachments on it, I'd stick around for a little while and be glad to show you how to do it. It's pretty easy, everything but the survey, which costs some money. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for the handout, Mr. Pace.
Madam Chair, can I have just a moment of personal privilege?
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to say that I met with Mr. Pace, and what Mr. Pace is trying to do is actually restore a historic property, and would be, but for the fact that it collapsed over time, would be trying to preserve the thing that our ordinance are trying to protect, but because of the way the ordinance is written, is not able to do that. And we've been trying to go through as much as we can in the administration, but it may be something that the council needs to look at, and that I'd be happy to bring forward and explain in greater detail. But what Mr. Pace is doing, I think, is really commendable, and we should work with residents like him to try to, instead of working against him.
Thank you, Councilmember Wharton, and we'll look forward to learning more about that. Bernie, and after Bernie, Dave Iltis.
Thank you. I've been here a number of times voicing concerns about the homeless situation in Salt Lake. 2 years ago, we started a program over at the library. You think of it as our Tai Chi program, but we think of it as an 01 project. We're looking at new ideas about human behavior and new ideas about who we are. For us, it's a big deal, and I thought I'd update you on what we're doing. Over the last recent 2 weeks, we serviced or had 165 different individuals join our Tai Chi program at the Rio Grande. This is different individuals, the Rio Grande and at the library. We've been averaging 45 people a day, 5 days a week, in a physical activity program and in this program, we do not recruit. We do not go out and look. Our outreach comes about by people bringing their friends to us. They come to us. There is no outreach. We have 2 people currently in detox over at VOA. We have 1 person on the way. The relapse rates for addiction in all existing programs are very high. One of our people that had just been off Spice now for about 3 months is organizing a different type of recovery type program, and we'll be doing that as another program in addition to what we're doing. We are also starting an 1111 project. That is a program that will be for almost exclusively for people that, because of the recent jail information and arrest, for people that have been arrested a minimum of 11 times and have been on the street or in jail at least 11 years. It was led Monday by somebody that had been arrested 100 times and has 20 years of homelessness. He is one of our leaders. We're going to be expanding our community service program to include other courts other than Judge Baxter's court, and I could go on. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart, for all of that. Dave Iltis, and Dave's the last card I have. If anyone else wants to speak, raise your hand and we'll bring you a comment card. Cindy Lou, could you do that? Thank you. Go ahead, Dave.
Hi, my name's Dave Iltis. I'm here to speak on the item you have under your new business, which is the State Street CRA. I would like to ask you to please not pass that tonight. Please don't suspend the rules. Please do have a public hearing on this, because I don't think that the State Street CRA is really ready for passage. It does not mention bicycles in there. It's an oversight that I find bewildering, given the city's attempt to become more climate positive, more sustainable, more healthy, and the CRA doesn't mention that at all, except for in brief crossing of State Street. It mentions nothing about bike lanes on State Street. It references the Life on State. It references the Life on State document. However, it doesn't follow the preferred alternative of the Life on State document, which is their option 4, which is to have bike lanes, to have more walkable, more sustainable district there. And it claims to mention or to refer to Life on State, but it just plain and simply doesn't. I find this to be appalling, given that we're in 2018, that you've come up with such a really poor document that doesn't deal with the issues at hand. People ride on State Street. They're going to ride there no matter what you do with this, and so it's time to make it a safe and complete street. It's just not an acceptable document as it currently sits. So having bike lanes on State Street, it's better for air quality. The new homeless shelter on 7th South needs bike lanes on 7th South and on State Street to access it. You could actually go in tomorrow with a can of paint and paint bike lanes on 7th South, because there's enough room there. But because of politics, the last time around, they did not put bike lanes there. So bottom line is, please don't pass this tonight. Please don't do this, and please revisit this and rework the document so that it encompasses all modes of transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iltis. Is there anyone else who wants to speak? Mr. Kwan, come on up and we'll have you fill out, oh, you've got one, and we'll collect that comment card from you after.
Like Mr. Iltis, I would urge to take a second look at the State Street reinvestment item. I think we need to include bicycling as a focus on State Street. It's one of the only roads that runs the entire length of the valley. As SORT, it's an important transportation route for all modes, including bicycles. Putting some bicycle lanes on State Street could help us to deal with the scooter issues that we're going to have. And we just need to constantly be thinking of the role of bicycling and low-speed motorized transportation on everything that we do. Secondly, I think Mr. Hart's Tai Chi program is awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Kwan. Come on up, and I have got your card on the way. Bob Seiler, thank you. Seiler, thank you, Bob.
This is my first time being here, so I'm not too sure how it all works.
You're doing great.
Thanks. Are there any envisioning that the city has for all the apartment buildings that are being built over the past few years? I've heard that there may be a need for additional housing in Salt Lake City, but really the aesthetics that they have is just really, I think, pretty ugly, I think. And I'd be really interested in the feedback of how these apartment buildings are constructed with the purpose and functions that they're supposed to be serving. Second would be bicycles. I heard the other gentleman mention, I know our police department probably has a lot more to do than we all know about, but how about with the bicycle privileges that bicyclists have, how about they also be responsible for riding their bicycles responsibly? And if the police department don't have the ability to monitor that, which is probably difficult, then maybe the citizens can take an active part and maybe contacting the police, because these bicyclists are riding without any lights. They're riding in opposite directions on roads. It's really hard seeing them, and I think they should take some responsibility in the safety or recklessness in what they're doing. My third thing would be, what is the city doing to develop different ethnic diversity restaurants, neighborhoods? I know they're trying to put up some kind of
Time.
Chinatown over on State Street. I mean, I lived in Oakland, California, and San Francisco, and Berkeley. I'm really in support of Salt Lake City developing their diversity, and would like to encourage buildings, to support that enhancement of our diversity here.
Three great questions. One of them, the first one, I think on the building aesthetics, maybe Nick Tarbett, our council staff person, can chat with you in the hallway. And the latter two about building diversity and cyclist education, I think Patrick Leary is raising his hand as the chief of staff. That's more of an administrative side, and these two gentlemen can at least get you going in some good directions. Thank you for being with us tonight. Robert Goodman, and Robert's card is the last one I have, but everyone's welcome. Raise your hand if you want to speak after Robert, and we'll get you a card.
Thank you to the council. Recently, I've been renting out my guest bedroom to students doing medical rotations here at the University of Utah Medical Center. And many of them have been very impressed by our public transportation infrastructure, as well as our bike lane infrastructure. And I just wanted to speak in support of that. I think the public transportation and the way we facilitate bicycles and other modes of transportation is really kind of the jewel of the crown of our city. And it was really great to receive that feedback from out-of-towners. Yeah, I would also support bike lanes on State Street as well, and as many streets as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Anyone else want to speak in this general comment section to the council? Okay. Then I better catch up with where we're at. I believe that takes us to the new business section, and the first ordinance is the State Street CRA, the Community Reinvestment Area. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'm not prepared to make a motion, but I'd like to ask a couple questions if you'd be willing to entertain a conversation beforehand.
I think we could do that, sure.
What if I
Make a
make a
motion?
motion and then you can speak to it?
I'll second it.
Does that work?
Sure.
Then we'll have a discussion in
whatever we
normal
need to
form.
do
So
to
Madam
make
Chair,
this
I move
work.
that we suspend the rules and move that the council adopt the State Street Community Reinvestment Project Area Plan.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Luke and a second by Councilmember Johnston. Let's have some discussion.
All right, perfect.
Councilmember Kitchen.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, we've been trying to get both the 9 Line and the State Street CRA adopted for quite some time. In fact, the first open house I attended was, the first month or two of my tenure on the city council back in 2016. So this has been going on for a long time. And so I'm really anxious to get this moving. However, I think some community members have made really important points with regard to the lack of, the mention of bicycle infrastructure or investment in the State Street CRA in particular. And I see that we have a RDA staff member in Tammy Hunsaker in the back, and I wondered if maybe this was the appropriate time to talk about how we could begin to either incorporate bicycle language, mentioning bicycle investment, something about UDOT and Life on State. I don't know exactly what we need to do here, but I think it is an important component to this plan. And so I would rather wait another week or two if we can, in order to get this, updated. So I'll let you drive it from here, but that's my concern.
Councilmember Wharton?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would also ask that, or encourage everyone, if we can just delay this until the meeting on the 16th, that would be, I think there'd be time at our meeting on the 9th, and I would ask the chair of the board and vice chair of the board of the RDA if on that date we could have a brief update and dialogue from RDA staff on speaking to the bike issue specifically, and then we'd still be able to adopt this and move forward in a timely fashion on the 16th. So I would encourage my peers on the council to consider that option instead, and it won't cause any significant delay.
And I'll just follow up that comment, Councilmember Wharton, that as the chair of the redevelopment agency, I would be more than willing to put this on the agenda next week. It's not too late.
I'll comment that this is, I've participated in some of the Life on State dialogue that the RDA and Economic Development are a part of, and gratefully UDOT is a part of that discussion because this isn't our street, and that's why we're not just putting a bike lane on there, because it's not ours to put a bike lane on. And frankly, UDOT being at the table is a pretty exceptional opportunity for us to even have a dialogue about the potential for alternative modes of paint striping to include bike lanes on that roadway. So it doesn't give me so much pause, partially because it's not ours to do and never was. Secondly, because Salt Lake City doesn't put bike lanes generally on streets that have more than 4 lanes, which State Street is. It isn't something that we would typically do. Even if we did on that street, we don't. And I think that the Life on State work that's happening is going to inform a very good process. So I have some confidence. I have greater confidence in the Life and State incorporation into the redevelopment the CRA plan than Mr. Iltis expressed. And I am supportive of this passing tonight. I'm not necessarily going to obstruct this, but I will point out that if we ask RDA staff to amend the CRA document, it's my understanding that this thing starts all over, and we've got to take a new document to our taxing entity partners, and that's not something I want to do. This inclusion of bike reference is, I think it's already built in by the association to Life on State, and it being in Salt Lake City in the Complete Streets Ordinance that we're going to be looking at again as a council actually this year. So I don't want to pull this off the shelf when we've already sent it off to our taxing entity partners for review.
Can I just respond to that?
Sure.
I'm not necessarily asking for any text change or anything like that. I just felt that that might be a better place for us to have a little bit of dialogue than during our formal meeting. And I would like to have the opportunity to clarify what already is in the CRA and Life on State and explain to what extent bikes will be involved and why, to the extent that this isn't bike-centric enough, why that is.
I also wouldn't support sending this back to the taxing entities and starting all over. That would be not a good use of time. But maybe there's an opportunity for us to look at some sort of intent language to attach to this. Or I think that it may be worthwhile to have a conversation in the RDA meeting for that reason.
Councilmember Luke?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not interested in abandoning my motion, but I would say that, the proper protocol, if either Councilmember Kitchen or Wharton would like to make a substitute motion, they're more than willing to do that. But I'm, at this point, I hear what you're saying. I think that we can do some of that, but I think we can still pass this out. That would be my position. But if you're interested in making a substitute motion, go for it.
Are you?
Yes, my substitute motion would just be that we move this for a decision on the 16th, or delay this for a decision on the 16th, and then on the 9th, either do some intent language or have some dialogue to clarify this question about bikes in a more public way, and certainly I don't think cause any significant delay, like sending it back to the taxing entities.
So we have a
do that instead.
substitute motion. Does
Sorry, I
it have
started
a
to argue
second?
towards the end of my motion, but
Yeah, it was a little bit lengthy.
sorry.
It was a little lengthy. Do I have a second?
I'm wondering if it would be worthwhile, I don't want to drag us on, but I would like some clarity from Tammy on what we might theoretically be able to dive into next week, if it would make sense to invest the time, or, can we?
Tammy,
can
do
we-
you don't have to come up tonight, but if you have anything to help get us through the mud of the moment, that'd be great.
Hi.
Hi, Tammy Hunsaker from
Do
the
you have, do you
RDA.
understand
Yes.
kind of what I'm asking? So we have a concern about bikes not being included comprehensively enough in the State Street CRA plan. We don't want to go back to taxing entities, but we do want to make sure that this is included in our vision for the neighborhood and the long-term,
Sure.
development. So can you speak to what we might be able to do, either pass it tonight or move forward next week?
I think in the RDA meeting, we could definitely have a discussion and clarify what exactly is in the plan. The plan talks about improving safety and mobility both along the corridor and at street crossings. So that is in the plan. The plan doesn't identify specific projects for bike lanes. It's more of a goal about what we want to see occur, what type of change we want to see occur in the State Street area. So admittedly, there isn't identified bike lane projects, but we could clarify exactly what is and isn't in the plan. And then I guess I would add that one of the triggers with 17C, the RDA code, state code, if there are any significant changes to the plan, we would have to mail a notice back out to each property owner, re-trigger the 30-day public hearing
Please no.
clock. So it would set significant delays in the adoption of the
Okay,
project
so if we're not
area.
interested in that, then we probably wouldn't want to delay tonight either, right?
I guess that's up to you all.
Yeah. Okay.
Amy has or Councilmember Fowler has a substitute motion.
Okay.
Sort of, I guess it is. I would move that we suspend the rules and adopt the CRA plan, but with that motion, I'd ask the RDA chair and myself, I guess, to put this discussion on next week's agenda so that we can clarify what is in a public setting, what is in the CRA, and what we've adopted and have talked about adopting. That way we're not delaying this any longer.
I'll second that.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Fowler, a second by Councilmember Kitchen, which is the substitute motion. Any discussion? I want to say that it is my understanding that there's nothing in this CRA that would prohibit us from doing anything positive to expand bike safety access lanes. There's absolutely nothing preventative about that, and that I do have some confidence in our Complete Streets ordinance, and that's not going anywhere. If anything, I hope that it will be strengthened. So I don't feel that this passage of this CRA is an obstruction to bike expansion and bike safety in any way whatsoever. Any other discussion? Councilmember Luke?
No. As long as it passes tonight, I'm fine. So we can talk about it as long as we want, as many meetings as we want to, but let's just get this thing done.
So I'll just say that you have more confidence in Complete Streets as it currently stands than I do, and we will plan on having a discussion next week in the RDA meeting on this.
Great.
Thank you.
Do I need to roll call this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for this good discussion. I appreciate it. The second item is the 9-line CRA, Community Reinvestment Area, and I'll look for a motion from
Madam Chair, I move that the
Councilmember
council adopt the 9-line CRA plan.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Kitchen and a second by Councilmember Johnston. Any comments?
I'd like to drag this on longer if I could.
Can we study this some more?
Substitute motion.
No, I'm happy to support it, and we do have bike lanes on 9th West and Indiana and California.
Any other discussion?
Not to rub it in at all.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. I believe that finalizes our activity as an RDA board or as a city council in creating these two new RDA project areas, which is very exciting for me. Our Section F is unfinished business, and we have a request related to the rezone of 545 and 555 West, 500 North. And I believe we have a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the council adopt a resolution extending the time period for satisfying the conditions set forth in Ordinance 18 of 2012 by 6 months in order to give the city and the applicant time to consider options for a development agreement, which we love.
I have a motion by Councilmember Kitchen, a second by Councilmember Luke. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That one passes. In our consent agenda, I'll look for a motion there.
So moved. I move for
Second.
approval.
I have a move for approval by Councilmember Kitchen, a second by Councilmember Johnston. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thanks to our new board members, and we're adjourned.